In terms of strategic thinking and abortion, where are you most needed in the world? Well, today John and I are together here to talk about the areas in the world that are most affected by abortion. Where are the highest concentrations of abortion in our world today? We kind of think of these as the hot zones of abortion. If we could take the entire world and just kind of break it down by where are the pockets where the abortion rates are really, really high. We're going to look at some of those data and statistics, and we're going to talk a little bit about why that matters to us as an organization. And John, I'm just going to start off by kicking it over to you to say, as an organization, as a missions organization, PassionLife, pro-life missions,
Yep.
Why is it that we use data to drive what we do?
Yeah, that's a great question. Once you start thinking outside the border of the U.S., you need data to guide you because it's a big world. And abortion is a big moral crisis. And so with limited resources and a big world, we try to be smart and use some strategic thinking that would prioritize where we want to focus our work. And for that, we needed good data. And so we started looking around all the global data sources that we could find. Now, I would say, just on the side, that sometimes you go where the door just opens, okay? But generally speaking, we need to be data directed in the work that we're doing. So we turn to several sources. There are several that are somewhat well known. The Guttmacher Institute, which is the research arm of Planned Parenthood, collects a lot of data, but they have their own biases that are work in how they do their data collection, and they do a lot of estimating rather than actual reporting or collecting data that's collected by governments. The CDC is also another source. The UN and a couple other places collect some data. But the data that we feel most confident about is actually gathered by a group called the Johnston Archive. And they put out a report called the Abortion Worldwide Report. And their data, they've been at it a long time, and these guys are like total numbers guys. And
yeah, they're scientists. They do more than just abortion data, don't they?
Yeah, I think they do stuff in the area of astronomy and physics and nuclear weapons and environmental topics and other types of things. But one of the things that they do also is they try to track abortion as a worldwide moral crisis and to give some sort of a data foundation to the work that needs to be done in the name of life. So that's our source. And you can find them online if you type in Johnston Archive. There's another qualifying point that we should introduce at this point when we talk about data, and that is there's different ways to talk about abortion in terms of numbers. There's the abortion rate, and there's abortion averages, and there's abortion ratio. Now, I'm not a trained mathematics guy, so I had to go back and reread these definitions several times just to make sure I get it clear in my mind. And if anybody's interested in seeing the differences in how these measuring, different ways of measuring work, visit our website at PassionLife.org and just select on one of the countries, and we have all of this data there. So I'm going to use Romania as an example. Abortion rate refers to how many women out of every 1,000 women in their childbearing years have an abortion. That's the abortion rate, and that is the measuring point that most statisticians use around the world. They talk about abortion rates, and there's abortion averages, and the abortion average answers the question: what percent of pregnant women have an abortion? What percent of pregnant women have an abortion? So in Romania, if you go to our website there, look up Romania, they have an abortion average of 21.76. So almost 22 babies out of every 100 that pregnancies end in abortion. And then the third way is called the abortion ratio. And that means for every 1,000 babies that are born, how many are also aborted? And in Romania, the abortion ratio is 278. So these are just different ways for us to see where those hot zones are, Mark, that you talked about. Where is the mission field, sometimes that we talk about, that abortion is creating? Where's the places of greatest need in the world?
Someone might raise the objection, well, why don't you just follow the Holy Spirit as to wherever he leads you rather than analyzing data which may or may not be correct? And the truth is we do some of that, like you already alluded to, but even Paul was known for his strategic thinking. He was known for, he said, I don't want to build on the foundation that others have laid. I really would love to go to places where Christ is unnamed and unknown so that my work can be considered strategic as far as kingdom outcome is concerned.
That's right. And of course, I like to believe that the Holy Spirit has led us to think strategically and to undergird our efforts with data, as well as what you might call some of the opportunities that just open up and unfold. And we'll take advantage of those as well. But as a mission, we want to be guided by strategic thinking, informed by worldwide data, and we want to even know the strengths and the weaknesses of the data itself so that we don't get fooled one way or the other. And so, we're just trying to discern our way forward as a mission organization and make sure that that we're guided by data and opportunity. Yeah.
So just by way of example, let me put up for our viewers this list that is an example of a list that was generated by Johnson's Archives. You mentioned the Johnson's Archive website that we refer to from time to time. It's not perfect. There are countries that don't report their data in a timely manner. There are countries where there are estimates that are taking place. But when you take this list and you cross-reference it against some of the same kinds of lists that you find in Guttmacher or from the CDC or the UN, these other places that you mentioned, these general patterns emerge, and that's why we trust this Johnson's Archive. It's sort of an unbiased look at where countries are listed. This particular list is arranged by rate. You mentioned that. That's of all the women of childbearing age, 15 to 39 years old, of each 1,000 women within that group, how many abortions are going to occur in any given year? And so this particular list is arranged by the abortion rate in terms of highest country rates, just country by country by country, going down the list, arranged by rate. Now you'll notice that Greenland is at the top of this list. We often joke that between the two people who are on this recording right now talking to each other, there may be more people right now here than there are in the country of Greenland. I mean, the population of Greenland is small.
Yeah.
I think there are 57,000 people in the country of Greenland.
Yeah,
that
but
doesn't mean...
They have the high abortion rate, though.
That's right.
Sure.
That doesn't mean we wouldn't go there. It's just that we also, in terms of strategic thinking, we partner with churches. And we have not had very much success in connecting with strong, evangelistically minded churches in Greenland up to this point. If someone watching this can connect us with a Greenland church that we can start to work with, we'd be happy to do that. But I just thought our audience would like to see this sample list that was generated this year in terms of ratio or rate of abortion.
Right.
I also generated this map on which I took all of those countries that are listed by the highest abortion rates, and I arranged red dots on those countries in terms of just what are the top 30 to 50 countries in the world as far as worst offenders by abortion rate. And when you first look at this map, you might say, well, this is just what I would think. Abortion is kind of spread out all over the place, and there's no real rhyme or reason to this. But upon further examination, some real patterns begin to emerge in this map, John.
Yeah, it's very helpful because it really shows where you can see the preeminent moral crisis of abortion being most concentrated in the world. And therefore, you have your priorities as a mission. And the first big cluster that you have there of the red dots is really in Asia, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
right.
You can think of China, North and South Korea, Japan, India, Vietnam, and some of those other countries there. But that is one of the areas of the world where abortion, along with infanticide and what we call gendercide, is especially concentrated in the world. Gendercide being abortion or infanticide based on the gender of the baby, usually girls in our time.
Right. Yeah, this is an area of interest for us for that reason, the gender side reason. Most of the world's gender side is actually concentrated in Asia. There are other places where it happens, but it's highly concentrated in Asia because of these cultural preferences in India and China and various other places for one gender over the other, usually in favor of boys.
That's right.
And letting the baby girls die when they find out that a baby girl is coming. But the other reason this particular area is of interest to us is because of the sheer numbers of abortion that happen in these countries, specifically because the populations are high. We all know that China and India are number one and number two. Actually, India is higher now in population than China is in total population. So there are more people who live inside of this circle. Actually, there are twice the number of people who live inside this circle as there are in the rest of the world combined.
That's right. Which is why we're taking, as a matter of stewardship, a bead on Asia as opposed to Greenland. We're going to go where the most people are, and the problem is the greatest in that area. And India, China, Vietnam alone have some of the highest abortion rates in the world today. And so we've done a lot of work in Asia trying to help God's people hear what God's word is and his will is, and then begin to do it in terms of becoming an army of good Samaritans within their neighborhood, and then in their province, and then in the country as a whole.
Yeah, and as a missions organization, and many of you guys know that missions has always been a part of my story. It's always been a part of my calling. It's something that I've been a part of. I've been a church planting missionary. I've lived in Asia for 10 years of my life. One of the other interesting facets of this particular area is that it is a huge part of what is known in the world of missions as the 1040 window. Many of you will probably be familiar with the 1040 window. A quick Google search will tell you the 1040 window is this kind of imaginary area between 10 degrees of latitude north of the equator to 40 degrees latitude north of the equator, and stretch that across Europe and Northern Africa and the Middle East and into Asia. And what you have inside that box is the highest density of lostness, spiritual blindness as far as Christianity is concerned, the lowest number of Christians, the highest number of persecuted Christians, the lowest number of churches, the lowest number of missionaries are all located within that concentrated box, the 1040 window.
So again, they're trying to be strategic in their thinking and figure out where the places of greatest need are in terms of our sending out our resources and our people with the gospel. Same sort of thinking.
So I find it very exciting that as a missions organization that is concerned both with the rescuing of innocent preborn and postborn lives and ministering to mothers and families, we are also extremely we have a high priority on sharing the gospel through just ministering to women and families in need. We see a lot of people turning to Christ, and as a missions organization, I find it very satisfying that a lot of our work takes us naturally by the data into the 1040 window.
That's right. And we do it in a way that not only rescues the innocent, but brings good news to the guilty, which is also very, very exciting. It's not a question of having to choose, whether you're going to be pro-life or you're going to be an evangelist. It's recognizing that abortion is a moral crisis in the Bible that we need to heed like Good Samaritans. But when you enter into the lives of people who are in crisis, you have an opportunity quite naturally to share the source of our provision and our confidence and our hope and the grace of God. So I like you, I love the fact that our mission overlays with the 1040 window, and that our training and teaching is both life-saving and life-changing. That's just a sweet spot for me as well.
Yeah, it's
and
a beautiful thing.
And in Asia, Mark, as we drilled in on that area of the world, share with people the response you got in Vietnam, for example, okay? As an example of when you go to a place where abortion rates are the highest in the world, how does the church respond there? Just quickly tell them what happened there.
Well, one of the first stories that really jumps to my mind is the first time that we were teaching in Vietnam, and many people have heard us tell this story before, but the first time we ever taught in Vietnam, there happened to be a woman in our audience who was scheduled to have an abortion on the very afternoon of the training that she was attending. She had gone to her pastor. She had asked, "What should I do? I'm pregnant again. I can't have this baby." He said, "Come to this meeting. I don't know what they're going to be talking about. They're going to be talking about the fact that abortion's probably not what you want to do. So why don't you come to this meeting?" She came to the meeting. The people who were there in attendance at the meeting heard at lunchtime that she was in an abortion crisis right there in the midst of us. They had already received some of our training, and they immediately came to the rescue and the help of this woman who received from these Christians everything that she needed to turn her confidence around so that she felt like she could have her baby. We were there teaching another 7 months later, and in she walked at lunchtime with her 7-month-old baby. And you can just imagine how she stood up and she testified about what the Lord had done in her life and how the Lord had affected her faith as she waffled back and forth between having an abortion and what the Lord had done to give her this baby that she now cherished so much. So it's a real confidence builder for those who are being taught, and just a beautiful display of the power of this ministry, both in rescuing babies and in what it can do for the human soul.
And now they're out. They have a vision to teach pro-life ethics and to start pregnancy intervention ministries from town to town throughout the entire country of Vietnam. So it's a real hot spot, again, in terms of both the critical need being a high area of abortion rates, but also the response has been equally hot and encouraging. And that's not true for all the areas that we've been to. So if you go to that map again and you look at the second area where the dots are sort of clustered, it's going to be in mainly Eastern European areas. Think of Russia, Romania, Estonia, Czech Republic, and so on and so forth. And the response there has been much more muted.
Yeah, it's been much more muted, and we can sit here and muse about why that would be. Number one, the Eastern Europe and Eastern Europe is known to be very post-Christian. In fact, I have a friend who says that Europe has been post-Christian for so long, they're pre-Christian again.
Yeah,
the church just has almost been obliterated by the advance of cultural ideology that just embraces this this globalistic general mindset that abortion is wonderful because it serves women and helps them in their reproductive needs.
Yeah.
You've also got a high concentration, especially in Eastern Europe, of post-Soviet Union countries. And when you think about that Soviet bloc and communism, it often calls to mind the idea that these communist countries treat their personnel, if you will, their citizenry as widgets, as people that they need in order to get a means to accomplish an end.
They do. It's a great example where worldview makes a life-changing difference in the culture Russia, USSR was the first place that abortion was legalized in the modern era. I think it was 1909 or something like that. And then, of course, in Romania, they actually outlawed abortion because the dictator there needed more people for his armies and his factories. So again, they were still being treated as widgets. Had nothing to do with moral value or human rights. And so that whole part of Eastern Europe is a hot spot today for continued abortion, high rates of abortion, and the need for the church to really rise up and get organized around the concept of crisis intervention strategies.
As we continue on with our talk about strategic thinking, we're going to take a break. We've looked at Asia because of its dense population. We've looked at Europe and especially Eastern Europe because of this high concentration of abortion-riddled countries in one small area of the world. When we get back from our break, we'll look at this third hot zone, if you will, where abortion is especially concentrated.
The U.S. accounts for only 3% of the abortions that happen in our world each year, leaving 97% of the crisis before us as a world missions challenge. Would you join us in serving where the need is greatest? PassionLife, rescuing the most vulnerable where abortion is most concentrated.
Well, Mark, you've highlighted Asia as one of the areas where abortion is most concentrated in the world, and we've talked also about Eastern Europe as a place. Neither of these surprise people, but there's a third area that does surprise people. Tell us about it.
Well, it is Latin America, with the top of that list of Latin America region being specifically the Caribbean. That really surprises people. And I think obviously it's because they think in their mind that there's this strong Catholic influence in Latin America, and that because of that, they would generally be more pro-life or have a more pro-life stance in Latin America.
There's no doubt. And among all of those islands in the Caribbean, you've got Cuba, which has had the highest rate of abortion in the whole world. So it really is number one if you remove some of the smaller countries. But if you count just countries with 10 million more people in it, Cuba's number one.
Cuba is a good example of an area where under communism, all religion was really kind of repressed or oppressed for a long time. And when they kind of took their foot off the neck of religion a number of years ago, it was Protestantism that actually came back a little more prominently in Cuba. Mm-hmm. So that may be one of the reasons why Cuba is an area there that the Catholic influence has not kept it as a pro-life nation as much as many people would think.
Yeah, and then the other, poverty. There's the sense of hopelessness after 70 years plus of a ruined economy through their government has just really rendered people hopeless in a way that even in China, under the one-child policy, the economic situation was more hopeful, and so people just had to figure out a way to work around the one-child policy. But in Cuba, they're up against some really oppressive hardships in keeping with just having a good family and having 2 or 3 kids.
So the Caribbean is just especially dense in high abortion rates, but that's not necessarily the case for all of Latin America.
Yeah, there's in other parts of Latin America, they actually still have some pro-life laws on the books. Abortion is restricted. And in those cases, we've tried to go in there and try to help the church understand this issue and why they needed to stand strong and get organized and defend those laws before they lose them. Unfortunately, in some countries like Colombia, when we first got there, they had pro-life laws, and they've lost them all since we've been there. So it's an ongoing challenge for us to hold on to ground as well as to try to take ground back.
And if we just go back to our map, you can see visibly that Latin America, by and large, actually has large swaths of that stand reasonably firm for pro-life laws and conservatism. And just like that, big portions of Africa and into the Middle East, where Middle Easterners, as predominantly Muslim nations, they think that abortion is morally wrong, and they don't abort their babies in high rates. They do abort them, but not in the highest rates. So this is another area, this Caribbean and Latin America is another area that really draws our attention as a third hot zone of areas in the world where abortion rates are high. This is the kind of data that really focuses us. And I've always been interested to notice that, just as a sidebar, we have these island nations on this map that are now highlighted in yellow. They were all there before, but now they're highlighted in yellow. I'm not exactly sure why island nations are so commonly high abortion rate areas, but it really is amazing. But now we've been at this as an organization for 12 years. And you can see from this map where the Lord, the Holy Spirit, has taken us. Many places that are within the very areas that we've talked about today, and including many areas that are not. Areas that are, again, bastions of conservatism, but the Lord has taken us there to help the church stand firm.
That's right.
John, as a result of hearing all this, what do we want to call our people to?
Well, we really want to call people to start thinking outside the border. You know, the United States accounts for about 3% of all abortion in the world on an annual basis. That means that 97% of the moral crisis of abortion is a world missions challenge. And so we invite people to partner with PassionLife, with their charity, and begin to really send our teams out and raise up indigenous teams in these hot zones all over the world. And if you want to be a part of something that where you're really needed and you can measure your impact, go to the places of greatest need with us and join us. And secondly, I want to encourage people to visit our website at passionlife.org and maybe download this little booklet called The Moral Crisis of Abortion and World Missions. What's the connection? We think it's really helpful to see the connection between our passion for world missions and our passion for human life and its protection. And once you've invested and once you read a little bit, you're going to want to start praying for our friends in Cuba, in China, in Vietnam, in all these hot zones, that they will really rise up. Abortion is not political in a lot of these countries. It's just an organizational reality that we need to get going to help people choose life and to learn how to trust God for their daily bread. So that's kind of my appeal is give, read a little something, and start praying with us.